Hi everybody, this is Kristen from Christopia Studios. Sorry I've been largely missing over the past few weeks. A family emergency took us on an unplanned trip and we're still involved in resolving the whole situation. But I'm home and trying to get back in the swing of things. In this video, I'm giving 7 tips for beginners in acrylic painting, which for me includes pouring, abstract, and realistic painting. So without further ado, let's get to it. Tip number 1. If you're afraid of brushes, and a lot of beginners are, then look for other tools that feel a little less intimidating. In this painting, I used brushes, but I also used cotton swab, paint pens, toothpick, even my fingers. Look around your house and see what tools you can use to add texture and fun to your paintings. Oh, and I even used a paper towel. Tip number 2. Try not to get stuck in the latest pouring or painting fad loop, where you don't experiment in other techniques. Have you ever noticed that in painting groups and communities, especially those that do experimental stuff like pour painting, that certain styles will roll around and stay a while? This is a very natural part of being in a vibrant and supportive community, by the way, and it's not at all a negative when you're practicing a new media or technique. Plus, it helps you to connect to the community. It can become a problem, though, when you slip into a rut and stay there. This is especially true if you want to develop your own style and maybe even begin to sell your own work. If you're doing it for pleasure, though, and find that you absolutely love a certain technique, by all means stick at it until you're an expert. This technique that I'm using in this video is a swiping technique, and swiping is my favorite technique to use to embellish over. I've been an artist for a long time, but rarely had the confidence in the past to sell my work outside of a few graphite or colored pencil commissions, or a few paintings I did on rocks way back when. A couple years ago, I showed my poured and embellished acrylic art at an open air show. I could see people walking toward my booth and heard many of them saying, "Oh, there's another booth selling those pour paintings. Is this the third one we've seen at this show?" The tones were a little bit judgy, but I tend to chalk that up to people not understanding how difficult getting a beautiful painting from a pour can be. As they got closer, though, and saw the embellished pour of a whale leaping from the water, or a Highland cow, or a phoenix coming out of the artwork, they were fascinated and changed their attitudes. They'd stop and talk about my art and ask questions about particular techniques I'd used. Tip number 3. Work the entire canvas if you want to keep from getting bogged down in the details. I like to move around on my canvas and paint in a less detailed and more intuitive sort of way. For this painting, I didn't use a photo reference as phoenixes don't really exist, but I did look at the shapes of birds' heads and beaks until I saw one that I liked for this particular painting. In another painting I did of a village in Italy my husband and I got to visit a few years ago, I worked from a photo I had taken, but I didn't want every detail the same. I just wanted the feel of the place. My husband recognized it immediately anyway. It was the emotional and colorful representation of the painting, but not photorealistic at all. Tip number 4. Use higher quality tube paints for embellishing whenever possible. You can use craft paints as well for embellishing, but sometimes they're a lot thinner and they won't give you the textures or vibrancy you want. Don't be afraid to leave a little texture on your canvas. Tip number 5. Keep a misting spray bottle nearby. Acrylic paint dries fast, and you can spritz your palette occasionally to keep it fresh. Also, if you have 2 cups or jars to wash out your brushes, you can rinse the brush in one jar, then give it a second rinse in the clean jar. It'll save you having to change your dirty water out as often. Number 6. Don't worry about making mistakes. In fact, give yourself permission to make them, and you won't worry so much about it. The wonderful thing about acrylics is that they dry quickly, and if you've made a mistake or muddied your paint by overworking an area, you can let it dry and paint right over it. Finally, tip number 7. Keep a variety of brushes on hand and take care of them. You can get a lower cost variety pack of brushes in nearly every store that has a craft or painting section. In fact, the synthetic brushes you can get in these multi-packs are well suited to acrylic painting because they're a bit stiffer and can really get down that paint. To make sure they last a long time, don't leave your brushes in your rinse water. Rinse the brush off, dry it on a rag or paper towel, and then lay it flat to dry when you're finished using it. If you leave them in the water, the adhesive holding the brush to the handle will degrade, and your brushes will come apart more quickly. Also, if you lay the wet brush flat rather than upright, water won't stay down in the bristles as long, which will also keep them from falling apart, and your bristles will stay nice and straight. Those are my 7 tips for beginners in acrylic pouring and embellishing. For a full-length tutorial on this piece, head on over to my brand new Patreon page linked in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel for more art content. Hit that little bell if you want to be notified when my next videos go up. There are also links below to my art website and my Patreon page where you can offer monthly support and where patrons get full tutorials on multiple forms of art, including acrylic pouring and painting, drawing, and other techniques from beginners to advanced. There are also links to my Facebook page and my Etsy, eBay, and Poshmark shops where you can find my pieces for purchase. I hope you're staying safe and that you have a great day.